In my presentation, I would like to focus on a so far unknown case in Baltic numismatics, the office of Riga Mint Master Jost Halterman. Jost Halterman deserves special attention for various reasons. First, because his appointment to the Mint Master's office on 13th of March 1660, I believe, is the only precedent of such kind in Baltic numismatics. Before promotion, he was merely a bookkeeper, and this, as I will later show, was against established tradition. Secondly, his activity period raises loads of contradictions. It is not known on what conditions and whether Jost Halterman ever carried on his main obligation minting coins. The lack of numismatical evidences show that Jost Halterman was not in charge of minting process at all. Jost Halterman has never been popular among numismatists. That little understanding what we have, we owe much to his discoverer Johann Christoph Brotze, the great Livonian polyhistorian and collector par excellence. Brotze assumed that signature IH in the local numismatic material refers to Jost Halterman. At the time, only one item with such initials was known, a 10-ducat medal of Swedish King Charles Gustav. Brotze and future generations of researchers were not aware of the fact that the same initials bore medals of Johann Höhn, a Danzig-born medal artist who was mostly commissioned by the Royal Swedish, Polish, and other European courts. Brotze also noticed that since 1660 and onwards, the coins bore only initials of Mint Warden Joachim Meinecke. Therefore, he came to the conclusion that despite the appointment of 13th of March 1660, Halterman never actually minted coins himself. In Brotze's opinion, Jost Halterman had died soon after his appointment. It was only in 1854 that Jost Halterman's name was brought to public knowledge. August Buchholz published article Register of Wardens and Mint Masters of Riga City, 1517-1705, which reflected largely on the earlier findings of Livonian mints and mint masters compiled by the Brotze in his 10-volume masterpiece Sammlungen. Although the accumulated historical knowledge was not sufficient, in the later generations, work on first-hand accounts was not carried out. Evidences to Halterman's engagement were sought only in numismatical material. Several local and foreign catalogues were published mentioning the coinages by Jost Halterman, but none of them proved right, and by the end of the 19th century, Halterman's name came out of circulation. In the 21st century numismatic literature, the subject hasn't been studied at all. The most significant studies in the history of Riga City, mint under the Swedish rule, are almost simultaneously published works by Rasmus Zepplit and Alexander Platbars. Both neglect to mention Jost Halterman. Platbars gives a comprehensive study of the Swedish crown mint history, only periodically taking a look at the Riga City mint. The study of Zepplit represents minting and evaluation history of the small denomination coins, shillings and dry polkers, minted in both mints. Meanwhile, virtually no studies engage with such aspects of Riga City mint as the structure, stuff, legal status, and income and outcome, which is essential to the interpretation of the historical situation under discussion. In the following minutes, I shall briefly take a look at the historical period under discussion. From the Livonian perspective, 17th century was characterized by the hegemonial policy of Sweden and the struggle for securing previous privileges. In 1621, Swedish King Gustav Adolf captured Riga and occupied the Latvian part of Vidzeme, or Livonia, as we know it. As in nearby Estonia, which was occupied some 60 years before, monetary and economical policy was implemented in both acquisitions for the economic integration within the Swedish economical system. On 25th of September 1621, Gustav Adolf confirmed Riga its minting rights, in accordance with the Swedish monetary system. Nevertheless, town council resisted privilege limits, and already 2 weeks later, in 5th October, Gustav Adolf renewed minting rights, which granted in future rights to mint groschen, dry polkers, and shillings according to the former Polish coin regulations. As the King of Sweden was the new holder of the Münzhoheit, coins had to bear the image of the king or the coat of arms. Mint kept its special institutional status and division of labor. All the minting obligations, expenses, and income were held by the city. Town council, for their part, appointed 2 mint lords to oversee financial affairs of mint and the work of the mint master, who managed the practical work of mints. The mint master was entrusted with the minting rights, for which he agreed to pay rent or fixed share of the silver struck schlagschätz to the mint lords. Riga Mint became a significant source of revenue for the city in previous period under the Polish rule, when small denomination silver coins, mostly shillings, were minted. According to estimations made by Polish numismatic Mikolajczyk, Riga shillings accounted for about 60% of the circulating shillings within the territories of the Polish Commonwealth. Thus, Riga exploited the existing shortage of silver change within the Commonwealth territories. The mintage of shillings didn't lose significance also in the following decades under Swedish rule. According to the estimations of the Münzbuch drawn up during the office of Mint Master Heinrich Wolf in 1633 to 1659, 308 million shillings were minted in the mint, which brought about 210,000 Reichsthalers to the city treasury. The profit came from the fixed share of each silver mark struck, the schlagschätz. Schlagschätz was fixed at 9 zloty, 1 groschen of silver mark struck in shillings, and 2.5 zloty of silver mark struck in dry polkers. Due to the high purchase price of the silver mark, no schlagschätz was charged for thalers. These sums roughly correspond to 21 and 4% of the minted coin values, and as we can see, the highest profit came from the minting shillings. In comparison to the schlagschätz being paid to city treasury, considerably lower percent of income went to maintenance costs of the mint, expenditure on the staff and materials. According to the calculations drawn by Heinrich Wolf in 1646, approximately 40 people were employed at the mint, 26 workers, journeyman, supervisor, and bookkeeper. Variety of craftsmen were also employed, 3 blacksmiths, 3 die cutters, silver dealers, stablemen, etc. The total cost for processing 4,000 marks of pure silver accounted for approximately 6,640 thalers, or about 11.6% of the overall value of the minted coins. From this, material resources accounted for approximately 4.6% and wages for 7% of expenses. Heinrich Wolf drew up the list only of the hired staff under his command. Mint master and warden were not included because they were hired by the town council. According to the employment contract of 30 of August 1633, Heinrich Wolf received in salary 1.5 groschen or 1 dry polker for a fine silver mark struck, and warden approximately 33 thalers a year. Since the amounts of fine marks struck in those years varied in the range from 10,000 to roughly 60,000 a year, the mint master's salary ranged from around 200 to 1,200 thalers. Given these numbers, total expenses of staff and material reached about 7,000 thalers, or 12.2% a year. Now I return back to the main topic, the bookkeeper. Little is known about the first bookkeepers and their obligations in the Riga City Mint. However, the significant growth of emission and working force at the Mint in the Polish period suggests that demand for a permanent accountant apparently existed. The first entry concerning a bookkeeper at the Riga City Mint dates to early 1621. Shortly before the capitulation of Riga, Mint Master Martin Wolf employed bookkeeper Johann Friedel. Apparently, every next Mint Master kept a buchhalter at his disposal. In 1646, Heinrich Wolf employed a bookkeeper who received 200 thalers a year for his services. It is not certain whether this could be Jost Haltermann or anyone else of his predecessors. It is also unknown what freedoms and rights Jost Haltermann and his predecessors enjoyed. A number of mint documents from early 1660s showed that bookkeeper status was rather high. During this time, in addition to the mint master's and warden's signature, the signature of bookkeeper appears. In 1662, Heinrich von Köln also gave the oath of bookkeeper. We may suggest that Jost Halterman, as well as Mintmaster and Warden, was appointed by the town council and was exempt of ordinary citizens' obligations, town guard, housing of soldiers, and taxes. The beginnings of Jost Halterman's engagement in the city mint remain unclear. His personal and biographical details, date and place of birth, education, former occupation, are largely unknown either. Because we can't trace the name of Halterman in Livonia before the mid-17th century, we may assume that Halterman was a recent newcomer in this Baltic region. As proof to his material well-being and social status was his admission to the burgher of Riga city in 9th of October 1655. Jost Halterman was promoted to the Mintmaster's office after the death of former Mintmaster Heinrich Wolf, who died in 1659, and who was the last in the Wolf Mintmaster's dynasty. It was exceptional promotion. First of all, bookkeepers were not on the list of future Mintmasters usually. Secondly, Jost Halterman didn't belong to the Goldsmiths Guild. And thirdly, he was an outsider, as I mentioned before. As to the factors which led to his appointment, there may be a lot of speculations, but one of them could be plague. I should mention that after 1658, there were only 4 members left in the Goldsmith Guild, and the deficit of specialists was a considerable problem. Also, it is possible that Jost Halterman came to more profitable agreements with the town council than the other competitors on how to exploit the means. So, what were his obligations at the mint? The ordinance of 13th of March 1660 stated that Jost Halterman was appointed to the Mintmaster's office for a 3-year period. According to the ordinance, he had to strike coins of certain weight, value, and amount from the fine silver mark, whose price, similarly to previous calculations, was not below or about the 24 zloty or $8. Every Thursday, the warden was required to hand in the coin book and the corresponding schlagshots to the mint lords. Unlike the earlier practice, the amount of schlagshots was not calculated on the basis of the denomination struck, but was determined to 9 zloty for each pure silver mark struck. In the following 3 years of his office, Jost Halterman was obliged, with the help of camarade, to arrange and allot an apartment to the mint staff. So, as we see, there were no special requirements or any amendments as to his special promotion. During Halterman's office, coins were struck by the experienced warden Joachim Meinecke. Joachim Meinecke was born in Riga in the family of goldsmiths Otto Meinecke. Following in his father's footsteps, Joachim mastered the goldsmith craft. His early career was overshadowed by the ill fame and poor relations with the Goldsmith Guild, the reasons as to why he was admitted to the guild only in 1652. In 17th of June of the same year, Joachim Meinecke gave the oath of warden. He was responsible for melting works, examining the fineness, keeping accounts, as well as providing a helping hand in the obligations. Joachim Meinecke was rewarded with $100 and 24 cords of firewood a year. In accordance to illustrate the contradiction behind this whole case, you can see here in the slide 2 pictures. On the upper right is the document dating to 22nd of March 1660, which recognizes Joachim Meinecke as the warden. In the lower left corner is the fragment from the coin catalog Livonian Coins. Part 2 is issued by the Estonian collector Gunnar Haljak. Gunnar Haljak gives the list of mintmaster, which states that Joachim Meinecke was mintmaster already from 1660. What we really see here is a mirror of one part of the truth, that basically the primacy of numismatical evidences. I would suggest that if we want to be correct from both theoretical and practical points of view, we should make at least some remark to the year 1660 regarding Joachim Meinecke's legal position at this time. At first, Joachim Meinecke's initials IM appeared on the coronation thalers of Riga from 1660. In 23rd of November 1660, Queen Hedwig Eleanor, in gratitude for the heroic resistance of Riga in 1656 against the Russian Sea, granted privilege nobilitatis civitatis rigensis. The King of Sweden crowned the coat of arms of Riga, and similarly to Swedish nobility ennobled the town council members. The same die set was used also for striking both thalers and 10 ducats Portugaloser, which I believe were the last Portugaloser struck in Riga. During the office of Jost Haltermann, the most commonly struck coins were shillings. However, the golden age of shillings were over. The influence of various processes caused the effect in coin market, which in Livonian numismatics is called the shilling catastrophe, or the major economic and monetary crisis in the early modern Livonia. Alexander Platbars linked the catastrophe mainly to the emission of the Polish-Lithuanian low finance shillings or boratinki and the intrusion of Suchau counterfeit shillings. In accordance with the Gresham's law, which states that bad money drives out good money, valuable Riga Livonian shillings went out of circulation. The result was the loss of confidence in shillings and the dramatic drop of shilling value. A variety of efforts followed by the King of Sweden as well as the town council to neutralize the effects of the shilling catastrophe. In both means, shilling emission was periodically stopped, exchange rates were determined, and the counterfeit money was confiscated. In 1664, the Crown Mint discontinued its operations, and in the following years, the last shillings were struck in both mints, in Riga City Mint and the Crown Mint of Sweden. In the autumn of 1667, trade in Riga had gone as bad as ever in times of peace. Goods from the western countries were shipped only through the neighboring lands, and payment was accepted only in thalers and ducats. To meet the demand for the precious currency, various thalers and ducats were minted. These were the last coins struck by Joachim Meinecke. The activity of Riga City Mint was not restored until 1700. At the outset of financial and monetary crisis in the early 1663, died Jost Haltermann. Circumstances of his death are unknown. However, as one might suggest, he died in prosperity. In 1661, Jost Haltermann concluded 20-year contracts with the town council for the lease of a mill and surrounding farm in Yxkull, situated near from the Riga. It is noteworthy that the town council set a limit on the usage of charcoal, not allowing them to be used for the needs of mint. According to the calculations of 1646, charcoal was a valuable resource. Processing of 4,000 silver marks required charcoal and firewood in the worth of 1,100 thalers alone. In light of monetary crisis, we should also take note of the regulatory changes in the mint that were implemented after Jost Haltermann's death. According to the coin decree of 11th July 1663, mint was no longer given to the mint master in lease. Mint master Joachim Meinecke and bookkeeper Heinrich von Köln were given joint rights of mintage as the city officials. As such, Joachim Meinecke, alongside the mint master's duties, performed those of Warden. Every Thursday, mint master submitted calculations of Schlagschutz and 9 thalers in Schlagschutz for each silver mark struck. The so-called adjuncte Heinrich von Köln filled the duties of bookkeeper and of Warden, took samples and examined their fineness, weight, value, and amounts. In addition to these responsibilities, he was also entrusted with the duties of economist, carrying out the calculations of revenue and expenditure. Both mint master and bookkeeper received quite similar wages, accordingly 700 thalers and 600 thalers. So, conclusion, the mint regulations of 11th July 1663 indicate that the bookkeeper enjoyed high professional status at the Riga City Mint. Bookkeeper had to be familiar both with craft of Warden as well as bookkeeper's economical calculations, and thus Haltermann's precedent owed much to the merging of these positions. In addition to professional skills, Jost Haltermann's career opportunities were possibly determined by his personal qualities, versatility belonging to burghers and material wealth. We may conclude that the rise of bookkeeper status in Riga Mint came at certain price. Because Jost Haltermann wasn't able to mint the coins himself, his period in Livonian numismatics doesn't speak of itself in coins. Therefore, the coinage of Riga Mint in 1660 to 1663 is commonly associated with the Warden Joachim Meinecke, who in respect to this period in literature is normally called mint master. Thank you for your attention.